Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas. Very happily to have my microphone back now that I'm back in the States. Only the second episode that I'm recording with my beautiful Shure microphone since getting back. And today I have with me Ann Boger, CEO at Bramble and Bird. Ann, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
So before the traditional icebreaker, my pleasure. Before the traditional icebreaker, I do have a an important question.
Yes.
What is a bramble?
A bramble is, think of a rose bush or a raspberry bush. Both of those have brambles. They are essentially canes with thorns on them. And it's also my tattoo. So
Love it.
So a bramble is a thorny bush.
Okay, love it, love it. I am very proud of my English vocabulary. English is my second language. And for a while, I was a avid Scrabble player, and
Yeah.
I'm an avid reader also. So generally very proud of my vocabulary. I don't believe I had ever heard bramble. So thank you for the education. For the listeners, Ann is now an InsurTech veteran, been around for a while, all the way to the C-level, and just reconnected recently, first at InsurTech New York, which was my first time at InsurTech New York. Wonderful conference. InsurTech New York Spring in the Chelsea Piers was amazing. And then again, a couple of weeks later at InsurTech Hartford in the Mohegan Sun Casino at Hartford, Connecticut. So great to reconnect. Very excited to have you on today. We always give the chance for the guests to give the elevator pitch. What is Bramble and Bird?
Thank you. Bramble and Bird is a new consulting firm that's right in between tech and insurance, healthcare, and finance. We look at regulated industries and help solve thorny problems, to go back to that Bramble name. We are a group of seasoned insurance and finance professionals. We all have a little bit of gray in our hair, but we like to build things, and we get bored if we're doing the same thing day in and day out. So we've come together to help startups, carriers, change makers build what they're trying to build, and do so at scale. So, for example, right now we're working with a carrier who is just entering the market and is building up their operating model at the same time that they are implementing new technology. It's a lot to do all at once. So we've come in to augment their team, work hands-on, sort of in the trenches, but also provide some strategy insights from seeing what other people are doing in the market. So think of us almost like an accordion that helps you scale up and scale down around change, whether that's doing research for you or just getting right there in the trenches, building alongside. Most of our team have an average of about 15 years of experience in either healthcare, finance, or insurance. Myself have been in the insurance industry for about 18 years, and but always as a little bit of an outsider. I've never worked in a company with more than 200 employees. So I'm used to getting things done with a small team and being super multifunctional, cross-disciplinary, and agile. So bring that mindset to the work that we do.
Okay. I am taking notes like a banshee.
Yes.
Okay, and agile. Perfect. All right. So that's a long time in insurance for having never worked for a large company. That's very interesting. But you are correct. Coming from a small company has the massive advantage that you didn't have State Farms or AIGs or Liberties, massive infrastructure to lean on, right?
Yes. That's a double-edged sword. That's a double-edged sword, right? Because when you have that kind of infrastructure, you can achieve large market share, You can make big swings, but you can also be impeded by your own history. And so what I've often done has been in small organizations that partner with large ones to maybe use their infrastructure in a new way, or partner on a pilot program where they're taking on a different kind of risk. So my background, I actually started, the very first project I had in insurance was to launch a new health insurance company in the state of New York. Before Oscar and other health insurance companies were sort of on the scene. And so that meant we had to work with the regulator, we had to work with funders, and we had to work with existing health insurance infrastructure companies to help us pull together something that had never been done before for a population where no one knew what the risk looked like. So we were also working with actuaries and program designers to identify, how do you build a sustainable health insurance program for a population that no one's insured before? And those kinds of challenges are really what I love to do, where you have to use a little actuarial, use a new source of data, maybe that isn't something that the carrier has used before, but which can indicate to you what the risk might realistically look like, and be creative. Find the creative thinkers inside each entity and get them all in the same room together.
So I always go and look at people's backgrounds, and I look at their educational backgrounds.
Yeah.
So you have just made new history here by becoming the first history major on the podcast to say the word actuary.
I love actuaries.
So like wildly different parts of the brain, right? So like,
yes,
I love the idea of a history major growing in our industry. I mean, we have plenty, but insurance is the island of misfit toys, right? We have history, psychology, philosophy, anthropology, art history, you name it. We have lots of them here, journalism, etc. But I love the idea of an art major playing in the very analytical spaces of the industry, right? Just yesterday, I was reading an article about how, was it Morgan Stanley? It might have been, don't quote me if it was Morgan Stanley or not. One of the investment banks, basically one of their top people said that what he would really like to see in the next generation of investment bankers is philosophy degrees. And basically saying, with more and more use of AI, the heavy Excel part of the job will need less of. What we really need is critical thinking. What we really need is knowing what questions to ask and why, right?
Yeah.
So that,
can I tell you a story?
Absolutely.
So we launched, I used to be the chief operating officer of Freelancers Union, which is a membership organization that represents about 500,000 self-employed people across the US. And it's still a vibrant organization. I'm just don't happen to be there anymore. But when I joined the team, we were founding our own insurance program because we'd experimented working with the market. We'd identified that there was a risk pool that could be created that was sustainable, and we could help a lot of people in doing so. And we took on this enormous task. We launched Freelancers Insurance Company in 2008. And in 2009, we were looking at our claims experience, our projections, and there was definitely some shifts we needed to make. And we ended up working with two separate actuarial teams in parallel to figure out, how can we look at this problem from different angles to come up with the approach that's going to fit our mission, which is to get affordable health insurance into the hands of as many people as we could at the time. And it was really fascinating with me to have this opportunity to work with two different quantitative teams and really look at, what is a risk pool? Why do you risk people together in certain ways? What attributes do you consider to be a determining factor and how much weight do you give it? And all of that came down to, how much do you believe that the history will repeat itself? And so just to kind of bring in that history degree, right? The year before, when we switched to start this new insurance company, people made different choices than they had made before because we were offering them a brand new product. And so consumer behavior shifted. And now we needed to think, okay, based on what our pricing model looks like next year, how is consumer behavior going to shift again? And what does that tell us about how we price the book, how we separate out the risks, a whole range of things that, ultimately the actuaries needed to make a decision on. And it was amazing when you find a creative actuary who wants to think with you about how, not just what does the math say, but what assumptions are we using and why, and where are we willing to take a risk that our assumption could be right or wrong, was really eye-opening to me. It was early in my career, and it really changed my perception of what that discipline can bring to the table when you're trying to solve problems. So I love working with actuaries, especially the creative ones.
Fantastic. So looking at the Bramble and Bird website, it looks like for now you have it you have the service into 6 different services. Right. So fractional leadership, right? COO, chief of staff, project officers. Should I go right or down? Okay. Product launch.
Up to you.
Okay, so product launch, from go-to-market strategy to implementation. Project management, cross-functional, agile, and savvy PMs. Process design. I love the description of process design. What got you here won't get you there. We're partnering with your team to identify blockers and improve operations and build scalable solutions. Tech transformation, which is a huge thing in our world, and then custom solutions, building an organization's both art and science, leverage our experience, network, and mentorship in new ways to fit your needs. The tech transformation one, let's kind of start there, because when it comes to tech transformation, in my mind, and my I'm a Monday quarterback, right? I'm an armchair quarterback, right? I have never been even a manager. I am just a giant nerd about the industry and also I'm not an insurtech guy. I'm a traditional insurance guy who happened to end up in the center of the insurtech world by sheer accident. Right time, right place, right crazy personality. Okay. So from what it looks like to me is that when we need to do a technology transformation for an existing organization, you go and get a Deloitte or other large consulting partner. So I'm assuming that partnering with you guys doesn't replace partnering with Deloitte.
That's right. It doesn't. It very well might not. I would say where we can be particularly helpful is understanding what are the blockers internally for an successful adoption and behavior change inside the organization, because there's some pieces of it that are kind of there's a whole element of implementing a large technology change that's about change management,
huge
testing. And we certainly have folks on our team who have done that before and have worked at some of the big fours. But the thing that I think sets Bramble apart is that because we are not consultants by training, we are operators by training who are now consulting. We recognize the incredible importance of how your team actually perceives and is involved in the change for it to be successfully adopted. So sometimes that means partnering with the Deloittes of the world, partnering with the internal team, filling a gap. I mean, I've often seen implementations go wrong because you've hired this great team to come in and work, and they don't have the internal person to interface with that makes them successful. And so actually, for one of our programs right now that we're working on, we are essentially acting like an interim staff person on the inside to then be working with that outside vendor to produce better results.
The change management piece,
Yeah.
radically important and often ignored, or at the very least mishandled
Yes.
in our industry,
Yeah.
right? And I lean into my internal Emma, to say, if you don't have the people change correct, right, the technology has no chance, right? It just not going to succeed. Okay, so that makes absolute perfect sense. Also, love the idea. I'm sure more than one organization has found themselves in the situation where we're starting a guide wire transition, or a Duck Creek transition, or Socotra transition, or whatever, and the person who was going to lead that has left the organization, and now what do we do?
And now what do we do? Exactly. And that's where, we have a client who had already picked, we're either going with vendor A or vendor B. We've narrowed it down to the two. We're trying to make our final decision. And it's going to involve not just implementing the new system, but a data transition. We're going to have to migrate historical data over. And there's lots of ways that can go wrong. The data is going to have to be massaged in a couple different ways to fit the new format. And we don't have the bandwidth for that. So we just need someone who can come in. The vendor, the core new vendor we're working with, they're going to bring a whole implementation team, but somebody's got to sit there and kind of babysit the data aspects of it and connect the dots with our IT team, who maybe does have the insurance expertise. They're more of an infrastructure team. And so with one person from the Bramble team, we can fill that gap and make sure that you have mitigated that risk and really smooth out the process.
Perfect. That absolutely makes sense to me. All right. So fractional leadership, when might that be? So there's a certain recruiter in our space that is really pushing the fractional side.
Yeah.
I have never seen demand for it.
Yeah.
At least I had never run into demand for it, but maybe I just don't understand when that makes sense. So leading into the, like, as you guys decided to start offering that service, what were you thinking of? When might it be needed?
Yeah, so actually, I announced I was launching Bramble and Bird in September, and a good friend of mine closed his seed round in October. And so he reached out and said, I finally have some funding. You've given me free advice for a while now. I can finally pay you for it. And so I am essentially his head of special projects. And he has a very small team. They are building fantastic product. They're launching some really great pilot programs and some new insurance programs with carriers. And I can sit on his team and at his price tag fractionally throughout the day. I'm on his Slack channels. I'm educating his engineers on the insurance industry. I'm representing him and his team with some of the carrier partners that he has. I'm getting him through due diligence with that carrier partner and handling things I've done a million times before that may be new for that team because they're an early insurtech. And me full-time might be overkill or more than their budget should spent. But without my expertise, they may not get out the program out the door as successfully or as quickly. So it can be a stopgap measure when you're small and growing. Also be a way to handle a transitional period. So you're going through a large transition. The amount of change management that has to be done in the next 18 months is huge, but then you hope to get back to a steady state. So getting someone to sort of manage that program of change is not a full-time position long-term. It might not be full-time right now, but it's more than your management team can handle. And you don't want a totally external person to do it who's going to be disconnected from what's happening within the management team. So that's a perfect example of where I can sit in on management meetings. I can sit in on quarterly planning sessions. I can help draft board decks, right? And other things that you would have a senior manager on your internal team do while you're going through a dramatic change or through a dramatic staffing change. So it also could be doing a merger or an acquisition when there's just a higher level of senior work to do, and you're trying to spread your senior team as far as possible.
Perfect. That makes sense. Um, Product launch, I think that one speaks for itself. Basically, if you need to launch a new product and you're missing something, you
Yes.
so you're missing somebody to at the executive level to do that, or what about we want to go into, or we're launching, right? We've historically been a personal lines carrier. We've never done high net worth, right? And we want the high net worth product. Can you help us with that type of a new product that we don't have the deep technical knowledge for?
Yeah, so I think there it's going to be a matter of what business line are you trying to move into, and does Bramble have the right skill sets in-house to help you or not? And so one thing I'm very careful about is I am never one to say yes if I don't know that I can actually offer what you need. So high net worth, I probably could introduce you to the right person and I wouldn't take it on myself. But if there's, we want to get into business owners, business owners policies, we want to get into life insurance, we want to get into disability insurance, an area where my team's going to have some expertise, or where there's someone in my network who could easily fit that bill, then we'll work together to find the right solution for you. And that could be a mixture of, well, what market research have you done to know that you're ready? Where's your capacity right now? Where are going to be the gaps? What systems are you using, and do they fit the bill? So actually one of the roles I played in one of my prior jobs was flirting with the new product line, figuring out where all the gaps were and what we would need to build, and starting to build out that functional capacity and that roadmap, and then actually helping the senior management team decide to put a pause on it for a minute, because it was not going to make the immediate impact to the budget that they were, and the bottom line that they were looking for. Now they know exactly what needs to go into it, and they can pick it back up when they're ready. It's all well documented. And so it's not a lost cause, but rather on the shelf to be pulled out when you're ready. And I think that's a really important thing about being nimble, is also knowing when to document things. And so I also have folks on my team who can just help the documentation. So sometimes it's fractional leadership. Sometimes it's just having a little bit broader of an execution layer to come in and help document and sort through all the things that you have already, so that you know what the playbook would look like when you're ready to move.
Okay. What about the project management and the process design?
Yeah.
Where do you guys like to play in those particular process spaces?
Yeah. So I really like to think of project management in two different flavors. One is technical project management, where you're focusing primarily on infrastructure and technologies. And one area where we're making a big impact right now is actually in information security. So that's an area where organizations go through pretty dramatic changes year over year in terms of their maturity. So if you're an early stage startup, or you've been around for a couple of years, you probably have some aspects of information security well in hand, and other areas that you've punted until you're big enough to make it worthwhile. right? And it's all risk-based, and it should be risk-based. You should evaluate what are our risks right now, build the program for right now, and then build out that long-term roadmap for how you elevate it up. And so one of the people on my team actually comes from the energy industry. The energy utilities are a huge target for information security. So she has learned, from the hot seat, so to speak, and now can bring that to an industry like the insurance very easily and help to translate an assessment or an audit result into actionable next steps to help you build up your maturity, which is a multi-year process. So that's one flavor. You have some pretty technical infrastructure work that needs to happen, and you need to speak the right language and really put a lot of milestones in order. The other kind is much more fluid and takes on more of an agile strategy product development kind of vibe, where it's about, well, our website is terrible. We hate everything about it. And we want to refresh our brand, but we don't have the time. And what we really need are like 3 content pieces that can make a difference, but we're not sure who to work with to make those changes. And so we're trying to find a new consulting group or a new marketing group that could help us out to figure out, what does our entire website refresh look like? There's a lot of project planning to do there and a lot of strategy work mixed in. It's much more fluid, and it's not necessarily going to be planned out from the beginning, nor should it be. But it also still requires somebody who is running point and being that almost production assistant that's helping it get from the beginning to the end, in a way where you know what the budget is, you know what to expect, and it's more on the liberal arts side of the brain than engineering side of the brain, but it still requires understanding of stakeholders, communication plans, and strategy. So we have both flavors on the team.
Okay, fantastic. This has been super, super, super interesting. Normally we dig into this a lot quicker, but what made you decide that the best use for your talents was to become an independent consultant instead of continuing down the path of like executive roles at different insurtechs?
Yeah, a few different things. One, I think I just like to dance to a different rhythm, and being able to sort of bang my own drum felt like a good experience I wanted to have. So part of it was just listening to my gut on what I wanted to do next. But I think that's part of a broader trend that we're seeing, I think, across industries, but especially within the insurance industry, especially with people who are 15 to 20 years in, like
I super quick parenthesis. I made a video about this about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think about 2 years ago, right? COVID and time is a really funny thing, but basically I called it the case of the disappearing Gen Xers. And it's exactly about that. It's about several. I started noticing that several high performing. And my network at that time, my network is very carrier heavy, but several high performing Gen Xers basically made the choice to go independent instead of going from AVP to VP. Right, they worked for this their whole career, and once the opportunity came, they're like, I actually want to do my own thing.
Maybe not, right? And so I think what's really happening there is a couple of different trends converging all at once. So one is people saw what life could look like if they didn't prioritize their careers over all else.
Huge.
It had a huge impact, especially to women, especially to people who tend to take on multiple roles, both inside and outside of the workplace, some of which get recognized, some of which don't. You also have just a huge reevaluation of what matters.
Absolutely.
I think you get to a certain point of leadership, and it's super interesting to take on the challenge of leading a team and coaching that team, solving problems that are about building out a team. And then you've done it for a while and you recognize how much hard work it is, and how repetitive it can be. The people are always different, but the problems tend to repeat themselves. And so does the industry, right? And the industry sometimes will make the same mistake 3 times. And once you've seen that, you can get a little frustrated and start to say, why am I spending my time banging my head against the wall? Or I'm bored. I'm like this problem solver who's been learning actively on the job for years. And now I feel like I'm stalling out. And I think that happens to a lot of people when they hit a certain level of maturity, if there isn't a clear growth path within the organization that they're in. And I think that's a lot of people in the insurance industry have been facing that, because, it's hard to make change, especially inside a large incumbent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll talk to others who have been in insurtech their whole lives, who are, and the last few years of really tumultuous funding rounds
Mm-hmm.
and the constricting of the market. I've spoke to one person, super talented, really diligent, like 3 layoffs in 5 years kind of a thing. And you start to say, do I want to give my like 125%? Because I might vest in 4 years, I'll be fully vested, but I'm only going to make it 13 months. And so another moment of just sort of re-evaluating where your priorities lie. And so we're at risk as an industry of letting a lot of amazing talent and on the job training like fall through our fingers.
1,000%
So
agreed.
I see what I'm building at Bramble and Bird as an opportunity to recapture all that talent and give them interesting problems that change periodically because they're working with different clients over a period of time, allow them to define what success looks like for themselves. So I mentioned information security. She doesn't want to work full time. She wants to work half time. And she can do that with Bramble because she's a fractional information security manager. And that's with one client, really all she needs to be doing for the scope of work that they currently have her on. And so there's this opportunity to create real meaningful work and the flexibility that people are looking for at moments in their lives when maybe they're taking a step back and really questioning. I also spoke to someone literally this morning who has gone through 2 acquisitions in the last 10 years.
I've chatted with several of those, yeah.
And he's like, you know what? It's not that fun to work for a bank. I really enjoyed it when I was working at a fintech. Now I'm at a bank.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to see the transition through, and then I'm going to figure out what I want to do next. And as I was saying some of the same things I'm saying to you, he was nodding like incredibly emphatically. And so I think we are seeing a wave that is going to keep going for a while. Like we haven't hit the crescendo yet. And so I think organizations and loose networks like Bramble can help create opportunities for those people. And for the organizations that are going through change, the companies that are seeing sudden growth, like you just sold that major channel partner and suddenly you have to onboard all of these new partners simultaneously and you don't have the team for it. Like, okay, that's going to be a 6-month problem, really great problem to have. And you've got all this talent out here who's looking for flexibility. Let's just match them together and solve both problems at once.
So this has been fantastic. Anybody who listened to this point, 30 some minutes in, definitely enjoys what you're doing and enjoys hearing you talk. I see that you do have some openings. The careers website. So basically, like who should apply at Bramble? What kind of people are you looking for? And for the listener, we're recording this late April of 2024, when the company is only a few months old, so it might change over time. But what kind of people should definitely reach out if they're looking for a new opportunity?
That's thank you for that question. I am looking for people who are 15 or 20 years in to a career in a regulated industry, such as healthcare, insurance, and finance, who like to solve problems, who roll up their sleeves, who are super collaborative. We are a remote first company that will get together around a client when they need us to. So it's very flexible in terms of how we work together. But needs to be someone who likes to bring their A game and really bring it when they solve problems, likes to really be in the thick of it, and then move on to the next big problem, and is someone who's really adept at working themselves out of a job. So if you're the kind of person who's like, oh, I built up that program and then I hired all these people and then they didn't really need me anymore. And man, that's happened 3 times. If that's if that's happened to you, then you're probably someone who would fit right in with the Bramble team.
Fantastic. And a real pleasure chatting with you today. Will you be at any upcoming conferences, InsurTech Insights New York, InsurTech Connect, or anywhere else? Where might people be able to find you live?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm trying to figure that out right now. So as you mentioned, we were just at InsurTech New York and InsurTech Hartford. I'm based out of Brooklyn, so those were super easy for me. I'm balancing building up the company and meeting new people with serving clients we already have. So I'm going to be heads down for a little bit now. But I am always interested in talking to people who are trying to figure out their next career or have any of the challenges that we talked about today. So I hope they visit my site and reach out to me. And then I'm thinking about ITC Vegas. I just haven't made the commitment yet.
The website is bramble-and-bird.com, and I will include that in the show notes, and I'll tag both you and the company on LinkedIn when this goes live. Thank you so much for your time today. Really fun conversation.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Awesome.